All right, welcome back to the Shop Class Podcast, Mr. G. Tonight we got a special guest, Chris Giffrow. Did I say that right?
You did, and you nailed it. It's pronounced exactly how it's spelled. So
awesome. And we got a nice round table of people. Rare occurrence. We got Justin Dietrich, all the way from Illinois, from the Rail Splitter. Chris and Justin did a class together recently. I want to hear all about it. And then we got Nick, upstate New York, and we got Winston Davis, all the way out in Alaska, and Tim and I are from Dirty Jers, representing representing the hardcore, the armpit of America.
Winston, what time is it over there? It's probably like noon, right?
Yeah, no, it's 4:00. So we just got out of school. So
look at that.
Oh, and I almost forgot Damien. What's wrong with me? Damien's coming from Australia, and he's in tomorrow.
Yeah, midday tomorrow.
Nice. So Chris is a craftsman, and I guess he doesn't enjoy his day job too much, like the rest of us. So, he's a diverse dude. He's deep on topics. He gets into he's also a lawyer, and but the main thing is he gets real into craftsmanship, woodwork. Not afraid to try new stuff. Working out of a very, very small shop, and he's got a YouTube channel. It's pretty amazing. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. It's glad to be here.
Yeah, and so the first question we always ask every guest is, did you have shop class?
So for me, it depends on how that question, I guess, is what you're trying to get at, I suppose. Like if I had, say, wood shop class, I did not. We did have an auto shop program at our school, and I did do that, and that was great. I'm still sort of inept as far as mechanics are concerned, but for the most part, I did get a fair bit out of it, at least general maintenance stuff. But yeah, we did not have wood shop, and that is one of those things that I really wish that I had, especially now.
Yeah. So, I didn't have shop class either. And it's ironic that I'm a shop teacher and that we created this shop class podcast. But the reason for doing this was just to get all the shop teachers out of the bubble. We're kind of isolated. Now with Instagram, it's been like an explosion of connections. But pre-Instagram, you really had to rely on your local like group, and they have them. New Jersey has the New Jersey Technology and Engineering Association. It's not a union; it's just a support group. I actually went alternate route into the shop class. I went for product design first, and then I kind of became a shop teacher. So really, the question is really not like, oh, you had to have shop class, but I'm sure there's a story of how you got into this, and I'm sure at some point either educated yourself on it, or how did you get the shop experience to gain into this situation?
So, I mean, as you were kind of alluding, actually before we started and hit and record, I've been on a couple different podcasts, and it sort of occurred to me that I never really got in depth. So the story I tend to tell is that I bought my house, which is a foreclosure. I did a bunch of the remodel on it because I just had a basic sort of knowledge about tools. And then I ran out of money, and I was like, well, crap, now I have to outfit this house with furniture. And so I just started watching YouTube and going down that rabbit hole. What I don't really end up talking about, though, is that, so I grew up surfing. That was my hobby as a child, and actually well into my mid-20s. And when I was in high school, I got into working with resin and doing ding repair, epoxy work. And so that's actually how I sort of got my start with even shaping surfboards and all that. So that's how I became actually familiar with using a lot of the same kinds of tools. And it's funny to see this whole epoxy resurgence right now because, I've been messing with it for years and years. And, it's odd that I have a lot more experience using it than some of these people that are out here right now. But yeah, so that's kind of to sort of flip back. Then after I bought my house, I started outfitting everything, and then it just got kind of maniacal a little bit. I'm one of those people that gets like really intensely into my hobbies, so one thing leads to the next, and I'm using Japanese hand planes in my front lawn. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so yeah, like I haven't done much resin either, but fiberglass is interesting for auto repair. I really never got into it. I was always into sheet metal and whatnot. But I want to switch gears for a second and just throw a turbocharger on this thing. You guys are probably stoked and just came off that. Speaking of like surfing and getting stoked, I snowboard, so I feel like I get the high.
Yeah.
I'm totally into it, man. And I just did like a big tabletop for the first time, on Monday, and I was like super proud. I mean, it was only like a couple feet, but anyway. So Justin and you just did a class. You want to tell us about this class? Like, what'd you guys do?
Yeah, so we were at Workbench Con, which, for those who don't know, is pretty much kind of like a, I guess, woodworking / maker social media influencer kind of conference, right? So it's not typically a very hands-on experience. And so the past couple of years, obviously they didn't do it last year, but before that, they were trying to integrate a lot more actual hands-on classes there. And so around, I guess, August of 2021, when they were sort of planning this out, I pitched to them an idea of doing a joinery and timber framing class. And I had actually just probably met Justin, maybe like, 2 months before that, actually around the same time I met Tim too. And we were at the Catskill Mountain Timber Inn over at the Maker Camp with Jimmy DiResta and all that. So
Yeah.
So that was kind of it. I was like, listen, like, let's try and see if we can get in there. And sure enough, they bit. And I'm going to be kind of trying to be as humble about it as possible, but it was definitely like the hit of the show in a way.
That's awesome.
Everybody was like really excited about it. Yeah.
So I got a naive question here. Am I right? This is like a regular hotel conference room, and you turned it into a shop?
Yeah.
Like I see here that you got like you laid down something on the carpet. Like this is just a regular hotel room, and you guys turn it into a wood shop.
Yeah, like if you've ever been to one of those conferences with like breakout rooms, like that's exactly what this is, except. And actually, I mean, the people that run the conference, we sort of gave them the heads up, really, listen, this is going to get a little messy, roll out like some plastic sheeting. And actually, they kind of went a little bit above and beyond. They were dropping ram board down, trying to make it as, I guess, friendly as possible for what we were doing. And then I drove up from Fort Lauderdale. So the conference is in Atlanta. And so, yeah, I did the hike. It's about a 9-hour drive, give or take. And I ended up bringing, sawhorses, tools, full toolbox full of hand tools, etc. So,
what is the name of this? Oh, this is it, the Workbench Conference?
Correct. Yes.
Wow, this is awesome. And so a bunch of us went to the Maker Camp as well, but I missed the first one where they built the frame. Were you at the first one or the second one in the fall?
I was at the first one. I ended up missing the second one because that was actually my wedding ceremony in Mexico. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, like the first one, and the first one was so different. It was so much more intimate. Like we were all there for the same purpose. And I mean, as you know, because you were there in the fall, like you can do timber framing, you can be forging a hammer, you can be turning a pen all within the same hour if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were like immersed in it for the weekend, like no escaping, using a chain mortiser and, getting dirty. So it was a lot of fun. We had a great time.
Yeah, I went up there.
Yeah, Tim was there.
Before, that I went up there with just the idea that I was just going to observe. And then it ended up being like Justin, I finally met Justin and, we just kind of talked a little bit. And then you got your hands dirty and it was like, Justin broke it down into like these small little like chunks and groups. So everybody had their own little task. So it's not like you had a lot of things to do. You were only really focused on one or two tasks. And that's what kind of made it nice, because it was intimate. It was smaller. You were only working with one or two other people. And then it was nice because you could stop what you're doing, get up, and then go talk to Chris, or go back to talk to Justin, or go observe somebody else across the, we were in like this big tent or a garage area, and you could just check out and see what everyone else was doing, and then go back to what you were working on. And it was a really, really great experience. And, Chris basically got in a zone with building this timber framing, and he just kind of it was like he was attracted to that. And that's what was so cool about it.
And I will say, sort of to that point, Tim, like one of the funny things about this was that for me, like I was really into furniture. I mean, I'm still very into furniture, but I was taking these like Japanese timber frame joints and I was scaling them down for furniture. I'm actually sitting right now. I can't whip my camera around, but there's, this desk that I did, and I'm using like a very specific like vertical joint. So I'm actually like melding like two pieces of wood together on a single table leg. If you go through my Instagram, like there's probably a finished product pic in there somewhere. But so I was taking these joints that are typically done in say like 6x6 or 12x12 timbers and just doing everything on a small scale, right? So then this is the first time when I'm meeting Justin and Tim where like I'm walking up and there's a 20-foot long, wall plate that's sitting there, and everybody's like, yeah, just go nuts. Like you get to do this, but everything's way bigger. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah, I highly recommend people coming out to this maker camp. I cannot believe I missed the first one, and I was like, I'm not missing the second one. And I got to meet Nick. I got to meet Justin. I got to meet Duke is in here tonight as well. And so it was just so cool to see everyone, and then a couple other people who were at the maker camp as well, who've been on the show before. And we got to meet Jimmy DiResta, which was always an excitement thing. This is cool. We did some pen turning with Nick, and I had no idea. I messed mine up. He had to discipline me. Got very angry that I didn't make it nice and smooth. No, I'm just kidding. And then at the end of the night, it was wild. Did they have this crazy rocket stove? The first?
No, so that was it was funny. So right before Maker Camp, I was actually in Oklahoma City with Michael Alm, and he was talking about the T-Rex or the Godzilla, whatever you want to call that. But yeah, that giant rocket stove thing that they made with scrap, and he had built one. He said he had like a friend of his in Washington State that I think like does these for. There's another, I don't know what you would call it, a festival or something, kind of like Burning Man, but it's something different. They basically build like a huge like effigy like this and then set it on fire.
I feel like we got to make the noises like.
Yeah. So he had a little bit of background in like how to build this, but like ultimately it was like him and Wesley Treat, and I think somebody else, might have been Johnny Charmbucas, that just went ham and just built that thing. I mean, it looks really, really cool. They actually, somebody, I don't know who's manufacturing or punching them out, but they're doing like these little mini steel ones. That's kind of neat just to have, like light it on fire on your patio or something.
Yeah, 42 Fab. He was doing all the welding instruction.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was cool. It was like they basically all night long, casual. No, there's no like safety tape or anything. You could just forge all night.
That was one thing from our class though at Workbench Con that I was actually a little bit more surprised about was they weren't really I guess real tight about like, hey, like everybody needs to be wearing eye protection, PPE, like wear gloves because you might get cut, like nothing like that. Just people were standing around. I've got like chunks flying as I'm just blasting out waste with a chisel. And I mean, it was a lot more relaxed than I thought it was going to be from that perspective, for sure.
I feel like safety is a culture. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you can really. I don't know. I'm not sure you can like sign a waiver and put some caution tape up, and then boom, you're just safer. I don't know. I just feel like it's a culture. You wear your glasses. Something spins. It's centrifugal force could throw it at your eye. You want, if it's hot, wear some gloves. Like it just seems kind of like everybody together. Safety is like everybody's problem, you know.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure you can just like put up a sign or something, you know, put your glasses on. I'm not sure.
And Justin will tell you, we had a girl actually in our first session that cut herself on one of the timber slicks. I talked to her after the fact. I mean, she didn't seem like she was super bummed about it, but like she definitely said that she just touched the end of the chisel, and like the next thing you know, she's bleeding everywhere. So somebody sent her out. She cleaned herself up, came right back in, and started getting back to work again. So I mean, props to her. She was a trooper.
Wow.
Now,
Cool.
now was your seminar? Did you actually build something with a purpose, or was it just cutting the joints? Because I kind of missed that in the highlights that I've kind of seen.
Yeah, because Justin and I never took a picture of the finished product. Somehow that happened. I don't know how that happened, but we essentially built one side of a timber frame like sawhorse. So you can kind of see the ones that I made because we used a sawhorse to build a sawhorse, but yeah, like it's just a bunch of mortise and tenon with the knee braces, and then we did pegs. So it was a little bit of like a hybrid between sort of what I do and what Justin does.
So you guys made a sawhorse. This is what it was.
Yeah.
But it's basically like a miniature timber frame house.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but it definitely incorporates like the primary joints that you're going to use. Like, you know, everybody, if you're doing like Western style timber frame, you're going to have those 45-degree knee braces. You're more than likely going to have either drawboard or pegged mortise and tenon. So, I mean, the way we designed it was, you know, sort of with that in mind. The feet are actually kind of cool. Those are, I mean, I'm sure Tim cut about 1,000 of these when we were in New York, but they're housed mortise and tenons. So they're set in, like the shoulders of your tenon are actually like set in a little bit deeper. I think we did an inch all around on those.
Oh, this is a different part.
No, but actually that's a kind of a fun little device. I whipped that up before I went, and that turned out to be really valuable because you know, it's basically set up like a little Roman workbench. So we were able to use holdfasts on it. You're able to plane on it, do whatever you need to on it.
Oh, you brought it with you?
Yeah. And I ended up having that done and then thrown it in the back of the truck. So yeah.
Wow, that's cool. How long did it take you to get to Atlanta? 12 hours?
No, 9 hours from Fort Lauderdale. So
That's
yeah, it's a
cool.
pretty hefty one.
Did you
10
get
hours
to
on the way
meet?
back.
Did you get to meet the wood maven?
Yes. Yeah. Shar. I know her.
Yeah,
She's cool.
she's super cool. She's like just so supportive. Like when I was talking to her about the Shop Class podcast and all kinds of maker ideas and whatnot, she's like, "Yeah, you could do this. She's got ideas like just coming out. It's amazing."
Yeah. That's
She was on the show.
Yeah, we had her. Yeah, that's right, dude. Yeah, we had
one
her
of
on
the
the
great
show.
things
On a
about the
couple times.
conference.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great things about the conference that Justin and I were talking about was like you're surrounded by all these people that have like such good ideas. Like just from talking to them and soaking it up, like I mean, you come back and I mean you're just on fire. You know, you got all kinds of creativity coming out your pores.
Yeah, 100%. Is this from there?
Yes. Yeah.
So like what is it kind of like the maker camp, but it's just at a hotel?
I mean, Justin, what do you think? Like, I mean, I wouldn't describe it like that.
I would say it's much. I don't want to say it's completely about like the influencer market of social media. We were definitely outlier. Like we definitely had the different class. Like most of the sessions there are like you could go sit in with Ben Ueda and Brad Rodriguez, and you know they would talk about you know kind of how they've built their brand, how they've built their channel. You know that you could go in and have you know and talk to some really cool people like that. It was definitely it's more focused towards that style of like kind of based around social media. But you know it was. Yeah, it was cool. And like I said, I think the one thing that kind of timber framing lends itself out to is that like now it was Chris's idea to do like a pre-meal like type thing where we did a lot of the work beforehand And then we had 90 minutes. So we had 90 minutes to try and put something together, but we still wanted to show all the joinery and like the different things and the different tools. And we wanted people
that's
to,
a short amount of time.
right. And so like, and it's kind of funny. I will call Chris out on this because we're all going to laugh too, because we're all teachers and we've all been there. But I think Chris's initial thought was like, oh yeah, we'll just knock one of these out. And he had this really nice PowerPoint presentation prepared, and he had in mind that we were going to like do all this. We got through like 3 or 4 slides, and then it was like, hey, we got to get going on this thing and get cracking. And it's like, if we're going to be able to get done in 90 minutes, and if you guys teach anything like I do, I might prepare a 20 or 30 PowerPoint slide and get through 5 in one class, and then you got to move on to something else, and so but that from that side of it, I thought what made our class so popular is that it was different and people could come in and get their hands on tools. And we had people up. We talked for about 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of the class, a session, and then we had people up on their feet walking around the joinery. The other classes were kind of like you sit down and listen to somebody talk for 90 minutes.
Right.
So it was pretty popular. I think.
What was your? Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I think it'll spur Workbench Con. Maybe not. I'm not saying they're gonna like just turn everything to something like that, but I definitely think they would do well to take on some more hands-on learning sessions like that. That was one thing that I had a lot of people come up and say to us, was that that's what they liked about it.
Wait, now why do they call it, not for nothing, but this is the Jersey in me, not for nothing, but why do they call it Workbench Con when it's really more like they had some workbenches there, but it was like a social media explanation.
Like watch bench con.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Watch bench con.
Hey,
I'm stealing
I want to know this. How many ice picks were at Workbench Con?
I had mine. we got to use mine. I had the little mini one. So, yeah. So, I mean, I guess when we're getting into that whole, like, why do they call it Workbench Con thing? I mean, this is going to get kind of ridiculous, but they have another conference. It's called Haven, and Haven is really focused on like kind of the same topics, but it's marketed towards bloggers. So like a lot of those like female design bloggers and sort of folks that are kind of going down that road. So here, they name it this to probably try to like tap in to more of like your DiRestas, Bourbon Moth, like those kind of guys. Like, so, and it's been, yeah, it's been great. I mean, like the biggest part there, I guess, well, the biggest benefit to Workbench Con, at least until Justin and I did our class, is that the classes are not really, what people necessarily go for. It's more, the networking, the social interaction with, these folks, getting to know people. I mean, it's the after hour stuff. I mean, Justin will tell you, we were up till like 3 a.m, like every night. Actually, this is kind of funny. So our second class, obviously I've never really taught much of anything before outside of, doing a voiceover on YouTube. But, when we're actually in the classroom, the first class, I still think it went amazing, but the second class went so much smoother because we sort of knew like all the mistakes that we made the day before. We had it like a little more dialed in, and like candidly, we were probably so hungover that like we couldn't move. We were like sweating. So we're like, all right, like you come up here, like, and it was much more focused. Like we were really focusing on like one component as opposed to like trying to whip up 3 different components and put it all together. So yeah, like it was really much more productive. And actually on day 2, we got through the entire PowerPoint, which was relatively impressive for us.
Was it the same people that came back to that workshop?
There was actually, so I found out later, it's such a whirlwind, it's kind of hard to keep track, but I found out later that there were a couple people that repeated just because they thought it was so cool. But mostly it was like an entirely new group of folks.
So basically, like it's basically makers and content creators. It's kind of like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's great. I'm sure you guys. What'd you guys learn? Give me like your top lesson. What'd you take away, man?
So, I mean, for us,
And
it's
Justin,
tough
yeah, both.
because, we were working on our like session as Justin was saying. So, I mean, day one, I mean, I didn't go to a single class. Like as soon as we were done with like our class, we were kind of like absolutely smoked because we were, I mean, doing all the prep work for about 6 hours before our class came on at 2:30. The next day was a little bit easier. We went to Ben Ueda and Brad Rodriguez's session in the morning, which was kind of nice about like, how they built their business, what they're looking for, how they're leveraging social media. Which actually, there were some good nuggets, and I'll share a good one that Brad sort of put where he was like, if I'm really product focused, right? He's like, I'm building, let's say cutting boards. Let's go with that. He's like, I can build 10 cutting boards. And then as soon as I sell them to whoever buys them, I put that money in my bank account and that's it. Right. He's like, but if I'm building and selling cutting boards and I'm videotaping it and like doing the whole, sort of content side around it, he's like, as soon as I sell those cutting boards are still making money for me on the back end through AdSense, through, his website, whatever. I mean, he got onto a whole thing about plans, how, making money off of plans and that sort of thing. And
Really?
kind of one of the neat things, because I've always been sort of against the idea of plans just because I like the idea of people being able to sort of think for themselves and scale things up or down just based on, visual eye training, I suppose. But, one of the things he sort of brought up is like a lot of his audience are guys that have very limited time in the shop, like they're guys that have kids, wives, and they don't want to be sitting around screwing it up the whole time. They just want, to make a farmhouse table and then point at it in front of their friends and brag with a beer and say like, look, I made this last weekend, So yeah, there was some really good stuff from him. We went to Jonathan Katz-Moses session. So that was
Wait,
great.
let me just pause you for a sec. Yeah, just to kind of tailor off that, I really like what you're saying because, yeah, sure. Like if you make something or you kind of make almost like a little production line in your house or whatever, and then you sell it. Yeah, that's it. You're trading it for cash. And yeah, you could go bigger after that. But if you really build a community around your, your passion to help people and explore topics, then it's always working for you. Yeah. Is that kind of the gist of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a long talk. I got to say that they gave,
Yeah.
but that was one of the bigger like takeaways. And I always found it interesting because I sort of felt like it put into words something I've been thinking, but I couldn't quite quantify. So yeah, it was pretty unique. And then, sorry, I was just getting into Jonathan Katz-Moses' session, which was really cool because it was all about like product development, sort of, inventing that whole thing. And I mean, I actually work with him. So among my other titles that you were sort of referencing, I'm the director of the Katz-Moses Woodworkers with Disabilities Fund, which is his 501c3. So he's had that, and it's kind of been just sort of sitting around doing not a lot of nothing for a couple of years. And he just hasn't had time to really do too much with it. But like this year, he wanted to really, move forward on it and try to find, ways to actually help folks. So yeah, like we're working on a couple of cool little initiatives for our first quarter, and we're about to launch.
Can you direct me to a website so I can talk about that a little?
Yeah, go to kmtools.com.
Chris, you brought up a good point. Like, I like the reference as to, people having plans and being able to follow the plan and saying, I need to cut part A and then put part B together with part A and then go from there. I guess I never realized that, when you're working in a school shop, it's almost like your ideas are endless as what you can do. But people in their garage or in a small shop that they have, they're focused. They're focused as in they want to make something, but they only have a certain amount of time. And I guess I never really put two and two together like that. And then I'm thinking, when you go online and you see, hey, buy this plan or download this plan for free or whatever. I didn't really think there'd be much in terms of making money on that. But I'm assuming there is probably a bigger market than I would think.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? Is like probably you and me and probably I'd imagine like most of the people on here are like, yeah, I mean, we're looking at this, right? This is plans for a router table. Like, it's a box with a hole in the top that you screw something in, your base plate into. Like, it's not rocket science, right? But like a guy who, has say 4 hours on his weekend is like, hey, I'm going to get this plywood, dimension down for me on the, what's it called? The sliding saw at Home Depot. And then he's going to just like whip this up together in his shop. Like he does. Yeah.
No, 100%. Like if I had the CAD file for like a car part I want to build, then I don't have to do the R&D. The R&D, the cardboard and the figuring stuff out and trying different materials and then trying to reduce the cost. That's the most expensive part.
Yeah.
Like I tell people all the time, like I do some electric car stuff and people want to convert their cars. So I say, hey, if you can buy the parts, you can convert it. But if you have to invent anything, just triple, maybe quadruple the time and money you're about to put into it. And they're like, nah. And I'm like, yeah, that's the most expensive part. If you could just buy it, you're good.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than like whipping up something together, and especially like putting all the time and like using quality wood and all that, and then finding out that like something in your mechanics, like the way you sort of engineered this, is a little wonky to say the least.
Yeah, I mean,
It's also
people want to be successful too, and I think following the plan is enabling them to be successful. Your objective is I want to build a router table or I want to build a farmhouse table, and they literally can follow the plan, with very basic modifications or mistakes. They can go ahead and build that thing in a weekend, if you will.
Oh,
the way we
absolutely.
Hey, you know what's kind of cool? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but think about it now. The way we teach in school before, 20, 30 years ago, I'm thinking we used to follow a set of plans, in the wood shop. But now everything's design, problem solving, documentation, in the school setting, not in the home setting. So it's tough. You have to change your mind from, design and problem solving to following a set of plans at home.
So I have a question that kind of for the room, really, but like, I mean, how hard do you feel in 2022 it is to like get kids like, obviously they have to sign up for these classes, right? But like ultimately, like how hard is it to get like kids like motivated to like want to actually make stuff and actually learn about this? Like, I mean, is it a battle or like people seeming pretty eager? Like, what's the story there?
The 2022, well, 2020 helped us. I had 8th graders. They were on their Chromebooks all day long. They came into my room. They looked like a bunch of zombies. After the second day, I'm like, put them away. We're working. They were happy just to sand. Some of the smoothest projects I had were the kids from 2020 because they were using their hands and they were smiling. We just threw the sandpaper away. It was tough with, sharing machines and tools and stuff like that. But we knocked out some good projects. But now these kids, 2022, I've seen a lot better work ethic. And it's probably just because you get them off the computers because they're on it all day.
That's a really interesting perspective. I didn't even consider that. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
In class, I mean, I think a lot of us that do teach here is, you do get the kids that want to work. You get the kids that want to work. You get the kids that are just there to fill up space in their schedule. And then you get kids that are, I'll say, motivated by certain projects where, like, if you're making a box, they may not make that box or do that project. No matter how many times you ask them to be involved or you give them a twist on a project, they just are not interested in it. But then you jump to, say, the lathe, or you jump to, say, a picture frame, and then the kids are like ecstatic. And that kid that was just sitting there not doing anything now wants to build something else. So it is really spotty. I mean, you have all areas of the spectrum in a classroom. Like, I mean, at least that's what I'm experiencing with in my room. So it's really weird. Very rarely do you have the ones that come in and are, basically just sitting there not doing anything. I mean, you do get one or two of those a year, and They're just there. No matter how many times you email home, no matter how many times you talk to them, they just don't literally will do nothing, you know? And then you have the kids that want to come in every day, any waking spot that they have in their schedule. They want to come down and sand and, you know, to go on the lathe or route or put finish on or do something on their project so that the next day it's just easier. It's totally weird on how a classroom dynamic does work in that way.
Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
The thing I was going to add real quick is that so here's I should probably be doing a case study on these classes. I have 2 drafting classes right next to each other in the middle of my day. My first class, so right now we're doing SketchUp, which is what I've been drawing and designing these timber frames in. And it's a pretty cool program. I think a lot of people, I've never used Fusion 360. A lot of people like Fusion 360. It's where you're building different components, putting them together in a 3D world. But I'm still learning the program. But so the interesting thing that I have going on is my first class comes in, and those guys, so the first thing actually we're drawing is Chris. I've got him drawing the saw pony that we just built. So I had those plans done. So what I did was I screenshotted all of the like different views and dimensions of the plan that I drew that Chris and I just used. So I screenshotted everything they needed to know. I gave them a couple days. I gave them some really good videos that another teacher friend of mine put together on YouTube. Said, watch these videos. Here's all the dimensions. I showed them a few things myself. Did this to both classes. Class 1 is finishing up their saw ponies right now. They're doing the joinery. They did it correctly. Like they have, when you do SketchUp correctly, when you like put a tenon on top of a post, the mortise automatically gets made on the beam that you're connecting to. So it does all this, like takes out all the guesswork out of all this stuff. Students are doing awesome. My next class, there is one kid, I think, out of this class that is even has something that looks remotely like a saw pony right now. The other kids are screwing off, not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And there's 3 or 4 kids in there, 3 or 4 seniors who they're checked out right now. They're ready to be done. And so it's like, I want to be like, I know it's not me because the other class is doing a bang up job on, like they're showing me stuff on this stuff now. And so, but I should do a case study because it's, and like you walk into the second class and it's almost like, I mean, half of them act like they don't want to be there. And I mean, we're all teachers. Seems like we always get one of those classes every year. You know, there's just that one class like that. But I'm like, I wish I could bottle up whatever energy is in the first class and sell it because that's the difference. Like, and if every class was like your first class, there'd be a lot more teachers in the world, you know, if you walked into a group like that. Because they do. Like, I walk in and then their good energy I feed off of, and it puts me in a good mood, and I like kind of, we just build off each other. But that other group, perfect example, Chris, I didn't tell you this story. When we were gone on Thursday, Friday, I was telling you, I was like, I'm so nervous. Like, I just, like, and my sub was this cute girl. She's like 23 years old, little blonde. And the guys, I knew that she was going to be the sub. So there were already comments being made the day before. I'm like, guys, don't make her uncomfortable. Do not do anything, you know. But sure enough, that class that was screwing off, when I get back in, I have a note on my desk that says, hey, Justin Walkendorf was in the finishing room when I walked in the class, and he spilled an entire can of stain. And I'm like, why is he even in there? This is a drafting class, and he's in the stain room that he knows he's not supposed to go in. I know he was vaping. That's the only reason he probably would have been in there. But he had a sub. He, like, you know, and that's a perfect example. It's like, and he says he's going into graphic design and going into college. And I'm like, you of all people should be interested in what we're doing in here. Like if you're going into graphic design, you're going to be working with like computer software. You may not be drawing saw ponies in college, but you're going to be using these techniques. And so I don't know. It's a little bit of a teacher rant I just went on, but
No, it's perfect. This is the whole idea, is to share ideas here. 100%, Justin. This is it. So,
but like I said,
Yeah,
if
you
I could figure out what it is I'm doing in class
You
1
will.
and not doing in class 2, I would be a millionaire. So
yeah, go ahead. Anybody else?
Yeah.
And then I got something for Justin.
I mean, I have the same situation, but it's my second class that's better than my first class. And we're doing the same exact project. I mean, I don't understand what it is. You know, is it me? Is it, you know, is it the characters in the class? Is it the, you know, just the, I don't know. I really don't know. But it's
Chris, you want to be Chris, you want to be a teacher? It's super,
Are they the
listen,
same
it's
age
super
groups?
easy, okay?
It's
Are they
funny
the
that you
same
say
age groups, Tim and Justin?
I
Sorry, go ahead.
believe,
Damien,
like,
go ahead.
part of
I was
my
just asking if they're the
philosophy-
same age group.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Wait,
Part of-
Damien, go ahead. What was your question?
I was just asking Tim and Justin whether the two classes were the same age group or year group or whatever.
Oh, same age group or year?
I think they're pretty similar. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, mine too.
And then Matt, were you going to say something?
All right, yeah. So for us, our problem is if it's the morning, if it's before lunch or after lunch. After lunch, shit show. Doesn't matter. Across the board, every class, every teacher, like they want something to get out of their classes. 5th, 6th, and 7th hour. Our intro to industry class got totally dismantled. They were so horrible. They literally got rid of the 5th hour, dismantled the class, and like put them in other classes. It was so bad. They canceled it. Like it was that bad. But the morning class,
Just wait
the
a
same
couple
class,
weeks.
same students, everything great. But after lunch, it goes haywire. And I've had that problem when I taught at the school before the job site. Now for me, it works out pretty good. The morning class is still waking up, so I have to get them wound up. And then the afternoon class, they come in from lunch and they're ready to go, and it's a breeze.
So, Chris, just so you know, Matt Bloomquist has a unique situation. The school actually acquires a piece of land, and they build a house with the students from scratch.
That's what Justin used to do. I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah.
No kidding. Justin, I didn't know you did that as well. That is awesome. So here's my comment for Justin's scenario, and I guess it's everybody's scenario. This happens. This is a perfect opportunity. I love this. So I have 3 sections of the same class, and I on purpose play some games with it. So like, okay, of course you're going to teach the same thing because you got the same materials, or that's your plan or whatever. But if you got one class is doing it, one class is not, now is your chance. Like you said, it's an experiment, like kind of like, hey, what if I could bottle it? Like, what's going on? Ask the first class and try out stuff with the second class. Like you could just try stuff now and just record it in your mind. Of course, it's not a perfect environment. One thing that I came up with was I noticed that small competition. So, I had like low participation because my class was like a dumping ground forever. Now with STEM, we get like these AP kids come in now and stuff like that. But I was the dumping ground forever. And what I started, of course you get like 3 or 4 kids that are like aces. They're amazing and they're so into it. But to get the participation level way up, I just started having them compete on every project. And in just some way, it could be a small competition or a big one. And something I noticed was, like I remember I had these kids come up to me and they're like, show me the list. Show me the list. I'm like, okay, here it is. They're like, I can't believe this person beat me. I'll beat them tomorrow. And then they come in and they're self-motivated to do it. And I when the kid walked out, I was like, man, I couldn't have anticipated that. I was like, all right, let's see what happens. And then they come in, and it's exactly what happened. They started competing, and then they hear about the competition among themselves. You don't even have to let them know. You just record it. You just got to narrow it to like one category or something. I don't know. That's one thing I started doing. But it's a game. You can play a game because you have controls, because you have the same curriculum on two classes. You got one that's great, one that's shit. You can play games. Yeah. My suggestion. I don't know. Cool. That was a good one, Chris. What else you got?
No, it was funny because like Justin and I were talking, especially like when we got back, right? Because we all have day jobs, and so like we were just so like invigorated with all this energy, and I'm like, man, like going back, and I mean it's different for you guys because obviously you're trying to like share your knowledge, right? But like for me, like I'm like going back to my day job, and I'm like sitting in court on actually something like this. Like we're still doing a lot of our hearings by Zoom, and I'm texting Justin like, just take me now, like. Just because we were so like just amped up with like all this creative energy, and then it's like
I totally get it. Like when I came back from Maker Camp, or I come back from like a some sort of electric car event, or even like some sort of thing, I'm always like, oh man, I'm like driving to work, like, oh, I love teaching, but trying to find parking, and then if there's staff meetings, oh god, it's just awful. Yeah, but so keep the stoke alive, man. When's the next event?
Justin, did you have your finger up or something? It looked like you were.
Just raising his hand.
Go ahead and answer his question. Then I have a question for Chris.
All right. So, I mean, the next like big event, that's a good question. I mean, I know, well, Justin's doing something out at his house in April. I don't know if that's like the biggest event on the planet, but I mean, we're going to, potentially do something out there. And then in July, it's back to the timbering again up in New York. And then, I mean, you got Maker Camp again in October. I mean, it's just kind of a big cycle.
Oh, when's the July Maker Camp?
Justin, I don't know when it is. You'll have to tell me on that.
And what is the structure you're building this time?
So from what Justin was telling me, it's a bridge, right? It's like a little walking bridge that they got and then they want to do.
Yeah. Austin and I, we're on schedule to talk here very soon and kind of get something finalized for a plan. We discussed doing like a walking bridge. They have a bridge that's kind of fallen apart. So, we thought about, it would kind of be cool to do like a wooden timber framed walking bridge or something like that. So we're going to start working on design and ideas for that. But yeah, and the other thing I would say is anybody here, and I mean, Nick, you've been out there, Tim, you've been there. I mean, I do, knowing all of you guys and being teachers, like the Makers Camp is in my opinion, by far like the thing that you would all enjoy the most. I mean, there's a little bit of everything, but it's hands-on. The entire weekend is just, there's no structure. Like Workbench Con was, okay, these classes are going now, then these classes are going, then these classes are going. Makers Camp is not like that. It is, hey, from 6 o'clock to midnight, 1 o'clock, there's going to be guys forging in the blacksmith tent. There's going to be glass blowing going on over here. There's a leather class if you want to go sit down over there and sit down on one. It's just kind of like you will get to everything you want to get to if you're there for a couple days.
Yeah.
So that would be my plug for the Makers Camp.
And then, I mean, this isn't an event by any means, but I am going in 2 weekends, so not this weekend, but the next one, to the Chicago area, and then meeting up with Bart Komar, who is a YouTuber, and we are going to be going out to a vintage tool show in Indiana. So he is like, I guess, the member of some tool society or something like that. It's actually kind of neat. It's like they classify themselves as like a 501c3, so they actually classify themselves as a charity, and then you have to like pay into it to sort of be able to go and actually sell like all your tools. And the way that he talks about it is really funny. Is like none of these guys are actually intending to sell any of their tools. Like really, they just want to bring all their tools into like this building and just flex about like the fact that they have a Stanley #1 and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're gonna go just kind of check that out and then do a project and a YouTube video off of that too. So
Is
that's
there a link? If you put a link in the comments, I'll pull it up.
I honestly don't even know the name of it. You could probably pull up Bart's channel though, the Komar Project, Komar. That's on YouTube. He's a really good dude. He does a lot of, I mean, all kinds of stuff. You know, I know Justin knows him. He does like a lot of like homesteading kind of stuff. He's got a pretty big property, which is pretty rare actually in that like Chicago area. And then he does, I mean, a lot of like DIY stuff. I think I'm gonna try to get him hand cutting some dovetails. So like he wants to do like a little accessory box for like hard drives and a lot of his like video editing material. Yes, that is the way it's spelled.
Okay.
But
that's rare that I got the spelling. That's not normal for this show.
Yeah, so he was telling me, he's like, I've never like done any kind of dovetails or nothing like that. So I think I'm just gonna bring like, you know, a dovetail saw and a couple chisels and just sort of take a whack at it with him, show him how it's done.
So this is my opportunity to ask Chris the question I wanted to ask earlier. So I'm gonna speak on behalf of the teachers here, aside from Chris. At least as myself as a teacher, I feel like I'm very good at some things, but overall, and I think, and this is where I'm gonna guess that most shop teachers feel this way, I also feel like I kind of have to be a generalist to just have a wide range knowledge of everything, because you might have one student that really gets into this project or one student that gets into this project, but as a shop teacher, I feel like we have to have a wide range knowledge of a lot of different things. Whereas someone like Chris, like your talent of hand tool work and like your knowledge of hand tools, but then like how talented you are with hand tools and fine woodworking, like high-end fine woodworking, is something that, you know, I might be able to achieve someday, but I'm definitely not there now. And so I'm curious as to like just how your mentality is different based on, since we're all teachers and what I would consider generalists, versus someone like yourself who is, you know, you have a ton of depth of knowledge in hand tool work and fine woodworking and Japanese woodworking, Japanese tools. So like, is there anything for you that sticks out different, or like just hearing us talk like differently about things, or is there a mentality that you have that's different?
That's actually kind of an interesting, so I was just trying to see where you were going with that question for a minute. I mean, I guess part of it is, you know, I sort of alluded to it earlier. Not really alluded to it, I said it. I was like, I have a very sort of like obsessive personality. It's like once I get like super hyper focused on something, it's like I will go 1000% down that rabbit hole. And with woodworking especially, there's so many little rabbit holes to go down if you really want to go down them, right? Like if I wanted to, I could go down that CNC hole and just go as, you know, far down there. And I mean, the Japanese tools thing, I know you and I talked about it a little bit at the show, but like, you know, I'm half Chinese. Like my mom is from Singapore. And so I felt like there was some sort of almost like cultural obligation to try to sort of continue using those tools. Japanese tools are really, really interesting because unlike a lot of American tools, like they're mostly made by like actual like blacksmiths, like generational blacksmiths. So, you know, as soon as that market dies and people stop learning how to use those tools and that market goes away, like that craft goes away too. And so to me, like I feel at least some kind of responsibility to try to like sort of like spread that gospel of Japanese tools and get people involved in them. And I know that, I mean, this is a story I tell quite often. So Tim, I think Justin, you had borrowed my plane when we were up in New York, and you just wanted to like, I think like trim down a tenon, basically. It was like kind of what you were doing. And then I end up like sort of jumping over there and showing Tim like, you know, like, hey, like this is how we're going to tune it up. And Tim noticed that like I took a razor like thin shaving directly over a knot. Like I literally just like
Yeah.
he held up the shaving and there was like a perfect shaving, and then there was like literally the knot was in the shaving. Like it was something that if I was to try to do it with like a Western plane, like that would have been hell on that blade. But you know, that thing just came out like absolutely perfectly. And you know, just using those kinds of tools, and you know, you're seeing here like in the videos that you got pulled up, like the sharpening process and all that, like there's a lot that goes into it. But I mean, it's something that I enjoy, and I like the idea of being able to like spread that to everybody. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think like really the bottom line is like, you know, it doesn't take anybody that's like super, I guess, naturally talented. Like I didn't pop out of the womb like knowing how to sharpen a chisel. Like, you know, it's just somebody that needs to believe in themselves. I do a lot of reading too. So I mean, you know, when we were at the show, like I brought a bunch of books just to like lay out. And actually I saw like a lot of people were really intrigued by that. You know, a lot of people were going and flipping through the books just to see, you know, what the tools are like, what the joinery looks like. You know, a lot of the stuff is like pretty classic. There's a lot of good seminal books on it. So yeah.
You know, Justin really did bring up a good point, because as a wood shop teacher, you have to be that generalist. You like, and like I have to know a little bit about the scroll saw. I have to know a little bit about the bandsaw. I have to know a little bit about, you know, table saw and miter saws, and you know, sharpening and carving and fretwork and coping saws and finishing and all of that. You know, it's like you can't just master one thing. And when you try to explain that to somebody, sometimes they don't understand it. Now, I've had kids ask me, they're like, the other gentleman that I share my room with, his name is Mr. Raider. And the kids will ask me, well, who's a better woodworker, you or Mr. Raider? And I really can't answer that question. I said, because in woodworking, out in the garage or in somebody's shop or wherever, you're going to focus on one thing. Mr. Raider is a diehard killer scroll saw artist. Like, he is absolute the best. You put him on the lathe, he's absolutely horrible. Okay. Now, you take me on the lathe and then put me on a scroll saw, totally different. I can't stand the scroll saw. It's not my favorite thing. But I have to know a little bit about every process in order to be the educator I am, to get the kids motivated in going the next step. So maybe I do have a kid that's interested in sharpening. Well, guess what I'm doing now? I got to figure out, what do I need to know to learn about sharpening to show that student how to sharpen something, you know? And when you give them a sharp tool in their hand and you have them use a dull tool, then they get to see the difference as to why sharp tools are important.
Oh yeah. And that's something I remember Justin telling me from, you know, when we had met. He was like, dude, he's like, I've never used tools that are like this easy to work with in a way. Like they're so sharp. Like, you know, it's a joy when you have, you know, perfectly like honed, you know, dialed in tools. And it's a lot of work. I mean, it takes a ton of time, but yeah, it's definitely, you know, it makes your work so much simpler, really.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, I kind of have a little bit different approach. I guess in a way, yeah, we're all, as the teachers, we're generalists. Yeah. One thing I do is I kind of, you know, want to light the kids' fire. You know, so it doesn't have to be that they become a great welder or they understand how to work on engines. For me, what I do is just light the kids' fire, and then it's kind of like kindling. Like if I get them started, now I can put the bigger log on. You know, I could say, so if I get a kid started with some stick welding and they get into it, then they on their own, you know, I don't want to push the elephant up the hill. I want them to start to become self-sufficient where they're trying to pull, and I'll put the hill in front of them. I'll say, hey, why don't you use the MIG welder next and do it like this? And I'll give them a technique. And then I'll say, and then if they get really good at that, I'll say, okay, why don't we put together a chair? And then we do the chair, and then just keep on raising the bar. Once the fire's lit, you don't really have to do the heavy lifting. But keeping your own fire lit is important too. So going to these conferences, going to Maker Camp, I went deep on TIG welding at one point, but I never really got super good at aluminum, and I never got super good at stainless and titanium. Those things would light my fire. I think Chris left the meeting by accident. Probably internet or something. He's like, I'm out of here. And so I would say, yeah, keep the fire lit by going deeper on a topic. That would be something. And I did that with electric cars and welding, and I'm getting into dynos a little bit and energy transfer. That's why I love the passive house and the thermal brake so much, because I'm just so amazed. I would thought that was like a machine, a car thing. And it turns out these principles of thermal management have to do with houses as well. So I would say, yeah, light the fire on a deep topic. I don't know if that helps. Did we get Chris back in here?
I think so.
Oh, good. Okay, you're back. So while
Good
you're
job.
gone, we solved
Gone. Yeah.
we solved all the problems while you were gone. And yeah, Matt. So did you have something to say? I forgot. I can't remember if you were.
Oh no, just listening. Although Chris is sitting there talking about sharpening the tools, spending all the time sharpening tools. Justin and if Mark's on there listening, we're all Illinois people. So Landon Lincoln, I don't know the exact quote or, but the saying goes, Abraham Lincoln once said, it was something like, if I have 4 hours to chop wood, I'll sharpen the axe for 3, So
Yeah.
Chris was saying that, just got me thinking about that. And then of course my mind was blowing, Chris, when you said, being Asian, that you weren't born knowing how to, great woodworker. And, I assumed you guys were all great woodworkers and martial artists, right? And that's
Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. I love this. Like, I've never been especially with hand tools. Like, I appreciate the art and everything goes with it. And I think it's so cool. But for me, like I always wonder, if we didn't have power tools, would I still do like woodworking and construction and stuff? Because it's like, do I love the idea of building, or do I love getting to use tools and stuff? So I've always wondered, but I've never gotten to use like Japanese tools, like, these tools that, like I said, perform at such a high level. I've never, maybe I kind of sharpened a chisel out of my tool pouch or something real quick on the belt sander or something. I've never really gotten to dive in, other than having like the good set whenever you have to do, door locks and stuff. But I need to try it. I need to do it sometime. So very inspiring seeing you guys doing this.
Yeah, like some of the feedback that we were getting from our class even was from, people that have used like hand saws and used chisels and, just general hand tools, right? And they were totally like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how much easier this work is. Like, we're sitting there hammering through, and this was not our intent, but like we were hammering through pressure treated pine because, we made a very specific request. We were like, hey, we want construction grade Southern yellow pine, not pressure treated. And of course, what happens? Like, we show up and there's a bunch of neon green beams sitting outside the door. So yeah, like, it's difficult wood to work with. It was super gummy and sappy, but the tools held up for the most part. And I'm sure as hell not looking forward to having to do all the tool maintenance, which I still haven't done since I've gotten back. So, there's going to be a hefty day of sharpening coming up. I can feel that.
Yeah, this is really good. I think I was listening to one of your podcasts, and they asked you about why you started working with hand tools. And one of the things you said, which I thought was interesting, was it kind of slowed you down. You had to think about all the details. The byproduct is it's a space saver, kind of. You don't have to have all these power tools around. But the one thing is, yeah, it's interesting. Sure, like if I had a hand carve or hand stretch a piece of sheet metal for a car fender rather than send it into a hammer, things would be a little bit different. And it is kind of hand done still, but yeah, the power tools change things. I never give students a screw gun until they've actually used a screwdriver, or let's say they use a handsaw. They don't even know that there's a sawzall available. And then I give them a sawzall once they kind of graduate, and they look at me like with disdain. They're like, "You're joking," and I'm like, "Nah, dude, we got power tools for everything. This is modern society. What are you kidding me?" And they're like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "All right, well, start learning some more stuff, and I'll show you more power tools." But I never show them the power tools first of all of it. I keep it away. Drills, saws, whatever.
If you want to mess with him, like hand him like a sawzall and be like, "Hey, like cut some dovetails for me." Like, see.
Oh, right.
And that just like illustrates that point of like there's a tool for every job, right? Like, actually, when we were like doing some
wait.
work,
I'm not a woodworker, so that's difficult, right? You can't really do that with a sawzall.
Yeah.
Everybody in here is like, "Ron, what's wrong with you?"
Yeah, that's definitely not something.
You could do it. It may not be the cleanest looking dovetail though.
Oh man, that's funny.
Just do the tail.
It may look like Helen Keller did it.
Oh my God, that's an old one. Oh my God. Cool, man. All right, so yeah, that's actually really interesting. Right, slow down.
I will tell you that since we've been so this is my first semester of ever doing this work with students with timber framing. So where I have students using Japanese pole saws, we're using Japanese slicks, we're using the Robert Sorby 1.5-inch chisels, and like I have students that have never like really gotten their hands involved, all of a sudden like getting their hands on these hand tools, and they'll go to work on them. And now we're about 3 to 4 weeks in on the project, and now they're kind of in a rhythm, and it's almost like they prefer the hand tools. I mean, like with what I'm seeing. So it's been a good process.
Shrinks the margin of error. That's like, I mean, it's kind of an unpopular opinion a little bit, but like I've always felt that way. It's just, I can tell when I'm making a mistake far earlier with hand tools and be able to pivot and correct, as opposed to after I've already made the pass with like a circular saw. And then I'm like, oh man, like that's way off, when you're paring down to a line, like where to stop, and like where the errors tend to happen for me, at least, is like, say like my reference jig moves or something like that. And then I have to sort of pivot off that. But I mean, to me, that's a far better position to be in, something easier to fix than just blatantly, making a bad cut straight up with a circular saw.
That's so interesting. I think I've probably, as a teacher, you go through phases, and I don't know if anybody can relate here, but we're using so many things. Like we're using welders, which are power. We're using milling machines and whatnot. But it's true. Like, yeah, just let some kids like cut something by hand. They'll be busy and they'll love it. And maybe that would get them back. Some of the kids that are not motivated, maybe will get into it. They'll sand something, like Duke was saying, just sand something and then be proud of what they did. And you can see all your errors and all your mistakes, and you come out with something that you made with these, because they're sitting in their classes, their English class, and they're just sitting there, and they come out with something they made, Hey, let's go to Timmy. Timmy's got a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Chris, I know you're really heavy with the hand tools and the Japanese stuff and like that and things like that. Like, where do you see yourself going in, say, 5 years and 10 years in the craft? What do you see yourself going to next, if you will?
That's a really good question, because I don't know if I have like a legitimate answer for that. I do know that like I do want to do like a proper like Japanese timber frame structure. I know like Justin and I were, kicked around that idea for a little bit, and I've sort of like pitched a couple like things to him about just what I'm trying to do, or but I would like to do like a full blown like knockdown building, and I'm trying to get it done to code here at my house. So I've been like actually working with a buddy of mine, my old college roommate. He's a PE professional engineer, and so we've been kind of messing around in Fusion a little bit, trying to do something like that. But I mean, that's one, thing. I've been talking to a couple of the guys from Moss Epoxies about doing a teardrop trailer. So, there's like a company called CLC. They primarily do boats, but they have a teardrop trailer kit, and Moss works with them pretty closely. And kind of like the appeal to me there is like how I could sort of trick out the inside of the teardrop trailer, like using like say some traditional like Japanese mats, things like that, to just make it kind of like a different vibe. But yeah, I don't really know where I'm going to go with the woodworking side of things, but what I can tell you is that, and this is kind of interesting talking to a bunch of shop teachers, is that like, this weekend was like my first time like actually physically teaching people face to face, and like the rewarding feeling that I got out of that was like nothing I've ever felt before, so I would love to, I mean, maybe not with kids, but, maybe with some adults, like do some woodworking classes, really try to like I said, like, especially with Japanese woodworking, right? Like pushing that craft. And the crazy thing too is, like I've never apprenticed with anybody, I'm not a master, or like, as they say in Japan, a shokunin. So where I can go in my craft and like really, I guess, exceptionalizing myself is, I mean, it's infinite, like there's so much room. I mean, I can always make a sharper plane blade. I can always, make a joint fit better, create much of my joinery. Like actually, so it's floating around in that Instagram somewhere, a Nakashima table. It's a variation on George Nakashima's conoid design. And I actually did like a pretty wild joint that, I mean, I'm not going to say it's never been done before, because I'm sure everything's been done before, but it was essentially like a Japanese timber framing joint that was tweaked at 15 degrees. And like just the amount of difficulty in that, I mean, that just goes to show like there's no end in sight as far as like how much I can push myself, really, I think is like the nuts and bolts of it.
Well, let me just say thank you for saying the difficulty of teaching, because I think there's this thing going, floating around forever that teaching is like this easy thing, and I'm just like, wow, okay, try it out for like a day. Let's see how you do. It is a serious thing. I love it, but it takes work. And I applaud you for giving it a shot. And it's awesome. Like when you connect, like, you're going to know these people forever. When you connect with someone on a build, it's great. Like I'm still in contact with a lot of my students, and I think it's amazing. The other part to it is, wait, now where is this piece that you're
actually, so you just passed the table itself, but you scroll up right there, but that doesn't show the joint. And that's actually another funny thing about joinery in general is like, I mean, the best joints, like as far as like the most difficulty, will never be seen ever. Like it's like literally directly underneath the tabletop. I think if you scroll down a little further, I probably have a video of me knocking that sucker together, but it's probably way further than that.
Oh, this is at Maker Camp.
Yes. Yeah.
Sweet. That is really cool. Look at these people. This is it right here. That is the crew.
Yeah, you can tell the guys I like the most. The guys that I'm standing next to.
That's funny. That's cool. I want to give Peter a chance. Peter's been putting some stuff in the chat. Peter, unmute yourself. Throw some questions in there. Let's see. Where else? Is it down here? Look at these cool.
Oh yeah, those little splines that I did. Those are
cool. Wow.
So actually, this is a really interesting technique. It's called Kikiroshi. So like the concept is, and I do like a little variation of it, but you actually compress the wood fibers. So when you measure your mortise and your tenon, or whatever the male piece for your female piece, you measure them like exactly at the same dimension, and then you compress your tenon, and then in this case I'm using glue. So once it hits the glue, it actually expands like in the joint. When they use it in a timber framing application, they're not using any adhesives. So they'll actually just spray it with water after it's been assembled, and that'll do the same thing. It'll expand in the joint. And I've been doing it a lot. Like as soon as I learned it, I just got like kind of crazy with it and started doing it a ton. And it's super duper effective.
Is that a copper hammer?
That is a brass. Yeah, it's
Brass?
a mallet. I actually don't use that one too much.
Okay.
But that was an old YouTube video. Made a little handle for that sucker.
Nice. That's awesome. Peter, did you want to jump in?
Yes, I could. Chris, I'm wondering, how do you maintain a proper angle by hand sharpening your slicks and your chisels? Do you not find that you can tilt a bit and it throws off the major angle?
So yes, and I mean part of that is like it's practice. You know, you got to get your 1,000 hours in. However, I will say the nice bit there is that it's part of the tool. So Japanese tools, as far as like chisels and plane blades, they're all single bevel, so you don't micro bevel them. So you have a nice big bevel typically to rest on, and that does make it a lot easier. I mean, the smaller chisels can be a little bit on the tricky side. Like if you're down to around 1/8 of an inch in that area, it gets a little rough. But for the most part, I mean, especially the plane blades, they're really, really comfortable to sharpen by hand.
Cool.
Yeah, that's good. That's you don't find it necessary to use a chisel guide?
So,
and
actually, it's funny as he's passing. I'm using a chisel guide, but that's for a Western blade. That one that's kind of on the left there. That's like I think. But anyway, so and I kind of got into this earlier too, with Japanese steel, it's all hand forged. So they're not absolutely, they don't have dead parallel sides. So it's really difficult to use a honing guide for them. They do make a couple funky little honing guides that are in Japan, but I don't know, like I've never had like any great success with them. So I just learned how to do it freehand. And I also find it's quicker too. If you're in the middle of working on something, it takes time to like sit around and try to, like dial it in, make sure you're at the perfect projection, get everything set up. Like if you have something that's, you just rock it up on its bevel and call it a day. I mean, it's a lot quicker.
Interesting. Cool.
So don't sweat the small stuff. Just make it sharp and go at it. And it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, really, like the whole. Maybe this is the video. Yes, that is the joint.
Wow, that's really cool looking.
It's a housed like dovetail, basically. It's pretty wacky.
And you don't get to see it.
Never really get to see it.
Wow.
I mean, in the video, if you watch the actual YouTube video, there is a close up of me like actually test fitting it. I did dry fit it, but
that's like somebody who does like when you do like a custom frame on a vehicle and then you put a body over it.
But sorry, to get back to Peter's point though about like just making something sharp and using it, that's actually like one of the principles that I sort of learned was, when something's sharp, right, it's when you have two planes that are intersecting at a point with as few imperfections as possible. So whatever you do to create that, I mean, that's really, what we're doing. So, yeah, I was real bad at snowboarding. Just to get that.
Not easy. Oh, you're in Florida. It's okay.
That was actually my first time. Oh, here you go. That on the bottom right of the screen, right there.
Here.
That is the test fit and a little bit more.
What's the name of this type of saw?
So that is just a regular dovetail saw. That's a Western saw, actually. A guy out of Michigan, Eric Florup, Florup Toolworks, he makes them. I actually just got a nice panel saw from him. And he's probably one of the better and more affordable Western saw makers right now. His stuff is great.
What would be the Japanese version of that?
So there's a Dozuki, which is a Japanese pole saw with a spine on it. That's probably like the closest thing to that. As far as like, say, like a panel saw, like something in that range, I mean, you're probably looking at what they call a Ryoba, which is pretty cool. Those are the ones that you see with the teeth on both sides. So it'll have one set of rip teeth and another set of crosscut teeth. I actually just purchased one of those. It should be coming in the next like week because
So cool.
I don't have enough saws to begin with, right?
Do you put no glue, right, on those joints, or you do?
These ones do get glue because this is for furniture. So I mean, in my opinion, you don't need any real knockdown purpose unless it's designed to be knocked down for some reason.
Oh, knockdown. Oh, okay.
Now, Chris, when you do something like this complex joint that you're cutting there, do you make a sample or do you do a practice joint on a scrap piece first?
No, I don't. I should absolutely do that, but that's not who I am as a person, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you know how it is. You know how it would be always, no matter who you are.
Yeah,
the perfect one would be the practice, and the good one would be crappy.
Right? Like,
It's like golf, Tim. You don't practice swing. You waste a good swing on the practice one.
It's always the first that first cut is always the best one out, and then everything else after that is just a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I mean, when I do dovetails, there's always one corner that's wonky. Like, you'll do 3 and you'll be like, oh man, I'm killing it. Like, these are all perfect. And then that last one, just something happens. I mean, it's
overconfidence.
Yeah. That's when, hiding your mistakes becomes, a fun game. Break out the burnisher, try to like roll it closed, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I saw there's some sort of school in Florida, School of Woodwork.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty relatively famous woodworking school. That's up in Tampa. A bunch of big name guys go up there. Chris Schwartz from Lost Art Press teaches there a couple times a year.
Oh, that's so cool.
Philip Morley, Frank Strazza was just there. Yeah, so they were actually supposed to have my buddy from Japan, this guy Dylan Iwakuni, come, and he was gonna literally fly out to Florida from Japan and teach. And then with all the COVID, restrictions and all that, and just the issues that they were having with getting the vaccine out there, they ended up replacing him with Andrew Hunter, who's another. I mean, he's not Japanese, but he is definitely a very high quality Asian style woodworker. And it was really cool, like from hearing from people that took that class, like they said the principles and everything were really, really neat.
Chris, have you done any like carving, like actual like wood carving?
So a little bit. I mean, I've messed with some gouges and stuff. I'm not particularly good at it. I know that so I started doing like a little spoon carving. That was kind of like, that's the gateway drug to most carving. And honestly, like I just got to get more practice, really. I do want to start incorporating a lot more texture into my furniture work. I mean, I see like a lot of those like scalloped.
Whoa.
Yeah, oh yeah. That joint on the right is really cool. The impossible tail.
What is that? What's that? What's inside of that? Like, why is that? Oh, it's just a sample, right?
Yeah. So he does a lot of like little test pieces, like just to kind of, so he's actually a professional, like timber framing carpenter. So he works on like old houses. The primary thing that he does is he'll go onto a site with his team, and he's actually like, he's not a master yet, but he's been, apprenticing for years. And so they'll actually knock down like a house, like literally like take it all apart, undo all the joinery, find all the rotten components, replace them, and then reassemble the house, which is pretty damn impressive. Like it's pretty wild to think that is something that, you can do. And like a lot of these houses too are like super old. I mean, most are well over 150, close to 200 years old.
Yeah, he's doing it.
They probably should have used a T-stud in the first place. He wouldn't have that problem.
Do you know about the T-stud, Chris?
No, I've never heard about this.
Man, you can't have thermal conductivity from outside to inside because you're paying for that. So if you want to break in the middle, what you do is you have a thermal break. So like, for instance, if you had a 2x6, instead they have this engineered situation, and it kind of looks like this. So you got your
world.
Yeah. Well, maybe that picture is not good context, but oh, here you go. And so that replaces the 2x6, but it's thermally broken, but it's structurally the same. And this way you can put insulation in between and wiring, and you now are not conducting from the outside to inside.
That is, I mean, my mind is like breaking and twisting right now, trying to gather that. That is really freaking cool.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's a strong back using dowels. So they drill out and insert dowels between it. So you're minimizing the connective, heat thermodynamic transfer.
I gotcha. Okay.
There it is.
So it's drilled out the flat side and partially into the narrow side of the other side. That's why it's called T-stud, because of the shape of it.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then you
And
can fill
when
it.
those dowels go through there, the dowels are grooved, so there's space for adhesive. Because if they're solid, like kind of what Chris was talking about, where you have to pound it, squeeze it.
Mhm.
Well, they don't squeeze it; they groove the dowels. So when the adhesive goes in there, the adhesive has room to grab.
Got a little more surface.
Not overexpand. Yeah. Look at that woodworking, old tech woodworking stuff coming in modern era, right? It never goes away, right, Chris?
I see. I never noticed that they were grooved before. Now I can see it.
Well, that's like if you use regular dowels, like if you do like dowel joinery on say like a tabletop, like those store-bought dowels, they're all fluted for I think pretty much the same reason.
Justin, thanks for joining us.
Later, buddy.
No pun intended.
The Festool floating tenons are like that. They're fluted.
Yes, I'm a big fan of the domino. That's like, I love my Japanese tools, but I really love that Festool domino a lot.
In the automotive, we would call this splined. If this was
some of the looks that my kids give me when I show them the domino after we've been making mortise and tenon joints by hand. But I said, you've got to appreciate the domino. That's why I make you do the mortise and tenon by hand first.
Krish.
Absolutely.
Great.
And actually, like, even so, I use the domino a lot, not necessarily to do to use actual dominoes, but I'll use it just for the purpose of bulking out waste. So, like, Justin, he's got the big chain mortiser, on a small like furniture project. Like my Festool domino is like my little chain mortiser, and the dust collection is pretty amazing. Like I don't have like one of those like CT dust extractors or anything like that. I just use like a shop vac, like hook up to a small port hose, and works like a dream. I mean, it's really, really nice.
Maybe Sean will join us at some point. Just a preview.
Sean's a good dude. I really like him a lot. And I know that Shaper wants to get involved with a lot of schools. So that's kind of their next horizon here.
Oh, yeah. This is like the thing where it follows the diagram, right? Or you put some sort of code on the table.
Yeah. It's
I have one, and my kids have been using it quite a bit this year.
Damn! I got one of those.
It's really cool. Like, I mean, I've never actually like used one, but I watched Sean do a demo when we were in Austin together late last year. And it's pretty wild that like, if you stray off like the line, like the router bit just like sucks up into it. Like, so that way it doesn't mess you up. I mean, like he was actually demonstrating how to use the Shaper to do mortise and tenon, which was pretty cool just to, sort of watch how we did it, because they have this little Shaper workstation thing. And then as he's assembling and disassembling the mortise and tenon, and there's various tolerances that you can sort of throw in there. It was so tight that like, and I mean, we're in a big warehouse, like presenting. And as soon as he pulled it out, the pop that it made like echoed through the whole building. Like that's how like, snug it was. It's pretty next level stuff.
That's awesome. I'm interested. Are they actually using like a power hammer for metalwork to crush a stud or something? What is that?
And he's probably forging. He's into a whole bunch of
What? What'd you say, Nick?
I said they're probably just playing with the power hammer.
Oh, okay.
They have a piece of wood under there.
Yeah, it's unrelated to Shaper. So I mean, this is Sean's personal account, so like he's probably just. got all sorts of stuff on.
Hey Nick, did you enter the box design contest for the shaper tool?
No, not yet. But
This is
I got to talk with them, while I were at Makers Camp, and I picked up a few things that I hadn't known, and I definitely had, a few more kids interested in it this year. So I think I'm going to go for one of their workstations next.
Yeah, I was looking at it when I was there at Maker Camp, but I was wondering if there's any type of practical application for a middle school kid.
It does seem like that might be a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, a few of the kids that used it for me this year, they were just engraving like the year or their name and using the stuff right on the shaper origin itself. So it does keep it where you don't need like Fusion or SketchUp to bring the file over to the origin. So it is nice that you can work right on that workstation,
Yeah. It is like that little work, the little interface, the screen is pretty big, and like you can actually like you said, straight up work off of it. So you're not having to go back to the laptop and mess with it. I got a bunch of friends that are really into like CNC and laser. And I mean it's great stuff, but it does get a little bit cumbersome, I think, if you just want to work.
What's the domino looking things?
So
What is that for?
That's so it knows where it is in the universe. If you don't have the dominoes, it doesn't know and it won't work. So, like I made up a couple MDF boards, half inch and 3/4 plain boards that we use as blanks, and we scan everything. And as long as you have the camera facing those dominoes on those MDF blanks, it'll be able to cut. So, if we're doing something off the MDF, we'll just keep constantly turning the shaper so it's facing those dominoes. But in this, video that you just watched, you can do it right on the floor itself, or whatever workpiece. Andy Berkey actually did a ceiling carving. He did it upside down, and he laid on a what do you call it? A scaffold, and carved stuff into his workshop ceiling.
Oh, look at that. They made it flexible. That's a cool idea.
Good old kerf bending.
That's what it's called, kerf bending?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically you're cutting a bunch of relief cuts in, I'm assuming that's plywood, and then it gets flexible there.
I made a chair kind of like that one time, but it was with like a honeycomb plastic situation, and I delaminated one side and then I kind of crushed it. But anyway, yeah, this is kind of cool that you can do that. Look at that. Wow. And then what do? Just reattach it, glue the other side, you make a laminate or something?
Yeah, you can, I mean, basically you fill, like as it's flat, you can fill it with, say, like glue, epoxy, whatever adhesive you want to use, and then you roll it up, clamp it, and then it'll just harden.
Wow.
Keep its shape.
Pretty amazing. Yeah, we got to get this going. Would this be, I wouldn't know exactly. Do the woodshop teachers in here, would you guys use this?
I'm finding it more and more useful, with their interface, and they actually have a off of their website, they have a web-based design program, so you don't need Fusion or SketchUp. So you can just design there and then export it out via the Wi-Fi and put it right on the machine.
You have one of these, Nick?
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
I backed it while it was a Kickstarter, and the school was on board with it. So
Wow, that's cool. I saw this demoed at Maker Faire when they used to do it in Queens. Yeah, that was interesting. Did anybody here go to that?
No, I think I could use that in my classroom.
Yeah.
For the kids that don't want to learn Fusion to do an engraving on the CNC router, but still want to have a CNC element. I think that would be very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
How do you mark that domino pattern on your workpiece? Like,
It's
how do
all
you
it's their
identify-
proprietary tape, so it's a consumable. So it's like $18 a roll, and you just chew through it type of thing, and it only recognizes full dominoes though. So if you tear the tape in the middle of a domino, it won't recognize that domino.
Hmm.
But
Interesting. Is this the opposite of what Chris does? This is
Yeah, this is pretty far on the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
this is
But like, I mean, with that said, like, there's so many like really freaking cool applications for this. Like, if I had $1 for like any time I've taken like some sort of custom commission or something like that, and they're like, "Can you engrave this on there?" And I'm like, "No, I'll send it to somebody else to do that." But no, I don't do that. Like that would having something like this would take that. I mean, put it back in my hands basically.
this is not American. This is not Western or Japanese joinery. This is computer joinery. Look at this. Oh my God.
Well, I can ask Katie if you can do it.
That's crazy. So he's going to put all that stuff together. Oh my God. Cool. This is awesome. Yeah. This is great. I think we learned a lot. Sometimes we zone out. I'm like tripping out on this. I'm just like, wow. You know what pulled us in was the attention to detail, to the knife, to the edge. And then we got deeper and deeper. Very cool.
Yeah, and then you went full hard left in another direction. But the stuff's great though, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think this is like, I don't quite want to call it like the next generation of like, woodworking and stuff, but like, incorporating tech into stuff, 3D printing, all that. Like, there's so much room for that now. And I mean, just seeing where like, I'm sure these kids, the screen tappers, so to speak, like they're going to be like really damn good at this stuff.
Absolutely. So now just kind of like, yeah, let's get like, what are you working on now?
So right this second, I'm working on nothing, and it is like such a relief.
Oh yeah.
So like I said, I banged out that what's it called? That little workbench, the pine workbench. It's like the Roman style bench basically. Right before I went to Workbench Con, and then I do have a sofa table commission that is kind of, I've been doing a bunch of stuff for this one client, and so I've got some stuff there with like I said, the next project in the list is a sofa table. And then the following weekend, we'll see where I end up with that. But then I'm doing that box that I'm talking about with Bart Komar with the tool show. And then who knows, I don't plan too far ahead. I don't get too weeded out with all the plans, but, I'm sure I'll come up with something eventually.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now your latest video here, do you do all the video editing, by the way?
I do. Yeah. So I do.
Oh my God. Come on now.
I film
now you're making us all look bad. That's a lot of work, man.
Yeah. And so it was actually, maybe you guys might appreciate this a little bit too, because I was talking to Justin, just kind of kicking around a bunch of ideas about, class ideas, things that he could do. And I was asking him essentially like, hey, like, do you have an AV program at school? Like, do you have like people that would be interested in? When we were at Workbench Con, Jonathan Katz-Moses was showing some stats about how like the number one thing that like kids, like I guess between the ages of 15 and 17 want to be is, it's not like it was, when we were kids. It's not like when you want to be like a professional baseball player or, a fireman. It's like, no, like I want to be a YouTuber now, is like what all these kids are saying. So I was like, maybe like kind of starting a channel around your shop class and like getting AV people involved, having people teaching video editing and having all of that meld together be a really cool way to get kids invested and sort of even have people like trying stuff that they're not super comfortable with. Like what if the kid that's behind the camera all of a sudden is like, yeah, like turning looks really fun. Like I want to do that. And then, swaps with somebody else. So yeah, I just thought it was a kind of interesting idea. We, still pretty half baked, but yeah, I do all my own stuff, which is, it is a lot of work.
No, it's a great idea because what, the kids know how to do, like, there's kids who do a lot of artwork, and there's kids that know how to, they know how to do TikTok and whatnot. And the schools don't tap into that at all. It's like they're completely disconnected. And so if you tapped into that talent and excitement, you could have some kids, so inspired they could highlight all their stuff. It's funny when it comes to job placement in the neighborhood where I work, they all go work at Burger King, Dairy Queen, Quick Check, all that stuff. And I'm like, hey guys, why don't you check out the bike store? Why don't you see if there's manufacturing? Oh, you want to be a doctor? Work at the hospital. They don't direct their careers. And so I say, hey, let's make a LinkedIn account. Use those TikTok skills to make videos about what you do. And they're shocked. I'm the only teacher that mentions it. And I'm the shop teacher. What do I, you know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous. So, and they say, well, oh, I'll get rejected. Like, oh, how would I get a job doing that? I'm like, just try, So I get them on LinkedIn, and I get them making videos about their work. And then we then share those videos out to a potential employer. And so you're 100% right. Like, Chris, you're on the right track. You're basically a shop teacher, and you just did, listen, that's your calling, dude. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's just,
Yeah, I mean, it's been an idea that's just been kind of like rattling around.
You got no choice. That's it. Tim, what do you got?
I think as a teacher, and maybe some of you guys also feel the same way, I think my biggest downfall is I don't record enough stuff that I do. And like, I'll take plenty of pictures, but I don't record myself working. I don't record kids working. I mean, there is that fine line there where you're recording the kids, but I don't record that much stuff.
Chris, look what Tim does. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Tim's a far better turner than I am. That's for sure.
Jesus.
Yeah, these are the kids' work. This is all the kids' stuff. This isn't mine.
This is 3 hours ago. This is recent, Tim?
Yeah, that kid turned that in Friday.
Wow.
By the way, my friend Dan Salan that you did the river table with? I'm going to come with him. We're coming to your shop. We're doing turning.
Okay.
You got no choice, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So all these first 3 projects you see on the top there, those 3 turnings, those kids have never touched a lathe before. That was their first experience turning. And you know the kids that pick up a turning tool and they basically put their hand in your hand and you say to them, listen, let me steer you to this. And I tell them, like, put everything else aside and let me show you what to do. And because then you get the kids like, I could turn my bowl in 4 days. And they're like, no, you're not. You're going to have 2 weeks of turning. They're like, no, 4 days. I'll be done in 4 days. Okay. And I'm like, no, you're going to be done in 2 weeks. Then those kids are the cocky kids, and then their projects turn out like crap. And then you get the kids that actually listen to you, and this is what you get. You get these beautiful projects that this kid can say, I made this in high school, and this was my first time ever using the lathe.
Are you using, with the kids specifically, traditional, like, high-speed steel tools, or are you using, like, the carbide turning tools?
It depends. Certain kids, and Ron uses expression all the time. Like, I treat, you treat the kids like, you only tell them what they need to know. And certain kids, you give them that next level of tool sometimes, depending on the kid. Like, if you see the kids buying into what you're doing, you bump them up to the next level. Everybody starts with high-speed steel. But if you're showing me interest, if you're showing me care and concern, bam, you get some of those carbide tools, and you get to use the better tools. And then the kids get they get cooler projects. But
never-
you're coming in and you're being cocky and you're being like, oh, I'm flexing my muscles and all this other stuff. Like, you're not getting that other stuff from me because you're not willing to listen. And if
This
you're
is
willing,
gonna-
if you're willing
yeah.
to listen, if you're willing to, go with the flow, then you kind of get that little extra love.
So this is going to sound just like super naive, but I never realized you could use carbide on the turning. That sounds great. Yeah, of course, high speed steel is great and all, but if you got carbide, man, it's going to be awesome. It's like butter.
When we surfaced this, when Dan and I surfaced this, we used a carbide router bit.
Cool.
Ron, you used carbide when you were at Maker's Camp with my tools.
Oh,
That's
no
all I had.
kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, most tools, or at least like power tool stuff, it's like carbide tipped at the very least. Like, pretty much every saw blade now has got some sort of carbide in it.
So
Hey, I gotta
Chris,
go
that
ahead,
was an
Tim. Send your. I'm
interesting
gonna jump back to something else you said. Go ahead, Tim.
No, I just said, Chris, that was a really interesting question. Like, because I think the kids need to learn on high speed steel. And I think they also need to learn how to basically roughly sharpen high speed steel, because I have the Robert Sorby system. And, you let the kids turn for a little bit and then they're like, well, I'm not getting the right cut. And I have to really angle my tool a certain way. And then you say to them, well, did you ask to have this sharpened, or do you want to learn how to sharpen this? And then, they run over, then they say, yeah, I want to learn. And then you show them. And then next thing you know, it's like, they'll cut for 15 minutes and then they'll run back over. Then they'll hone up that edge real quick and then go back and turn for 15 minutes. And they start realizing how important that, sharpened burr on that cutting tool is to their project.
So I watched Ashley Harwood turn a bowl actually at Workbench Conference a couple of years back. She did a live demo. And so she turned this monster bowl. I want to say it must have been like probably 16 or 18 inches wide. And she did it while she was obviously, doing a live demo in front of everybody, doing a PowerPoint, and then like periodically going over and like sharpening. She uses all high speed steel. I mean, it was super impressive, which just speaks to like her skill level. But part of the reason I asked too is because like there's sort of like, turning is a funny like niche area of woodworking where the sort of the people that I think are like uber passionate about turning, they're very like tool like particular, which I deal with that too, sort of, with the sort of crews that I run with as far as like hand tool stuff. But with turning specifically, there's almost like this stigma where it's like, if you're turning with carbide tools, you're not really turning, which I've always found kind of interesting, even though it's still a bowl at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I use high speed steel, but I feel like I would probably be a much more successful turner. And yeah, you can see, look how giant that like gouge is that she's got.
Yeah, that's a big lever.
Yeah, she's really, really impressive. Like her work is phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah, watching her turn, do a push cut and do a one-handed, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Always use just cuts.
Cool. I think Matt had a question, then Damien.
Well, hey, Damien, you can ask. Mine's going to kind of jump back to something Tim and Chris were both talking about. So have Damien, especially if it's something about you guys are talking about right now. So
go for it.
Mine was about the turning tools, and I've never used the carbide ones, but the general thing is that carbide cutters are all scrapers because of the way you come in at the job. It's always set at the center and that sort of stuff, so it's a scraper. If you're using the high speed steel and you can learn how to use the skew or how to ride the bevel of a gouge, you can sometimes get your turning done to the point where you barely need to sand, because the gouge the bevel will sort of burnish the cut behind it, and so you can get really, really clean. So yeah, I don't have any carbide tools at my school. I'd love to try them just for the experience, but I think if I went that way, I'd probably end up using them all the time, so I don't have to worry about catches as often. But yeah, one of my favorite tools is a skew, but it's an interesting and sometimes frightening tool to use because it'll catch really easy and throw, that sort of thing. But yeah, constantly running backwards and forwards to the grinder to keep your burr right and your edge nice and polished, and you can tell when it's not working.
Yeah, I don't teach the skew because I haven't really mastered that yet. I'm just trying to master the bowl gouge. I think right now it's a lot of scraping. There's a lot of scraping and a lot of roughing gouging. I show the kids, and I think that's enough for them because they can actually overwhelm them. So the kids are sometimes they'll ask what the skew is, but I'm leery to use it. I really am because I'm not.
Yeah, if you can get one or two of your scrapers reground as a negative rake scraper, so instead of just being flat on the top with your scraping angle like that, you'll then put like a small bevel at the top, and they'll tend to scrape a little cleaner as well. They won't cut or won't dig in as much.
It's kind of interesting, like micro beveling your scraper in a way. Like,
yeah, it kind of turns your scraper more into a 90-degree angle the way it attacks the timber.
Yeah.
And because it's got a downward bevel on the top, it doesn't tend to catch as much.
Huh.
I just know having the Sorby system set to a specific angle with high school kids is very, very easy for them to sharpen. It just makes it easier for them. Like Chris was talking about earlier, like how do you maintain that bevel? And with high school kids, you can't just say you got to hold it this way because they don't understand holding it that way. But when you have a tool rest set at a certain angle, they can follow that tool rest. They can rest the tool rest down, and literally you go up to it and just go fling, fling, and then next thing you know, you're done. The kids are happy.
And I've gone the other way. I'm full carbide.
And your life
just for ease, as far as quickly taking the carbide ring and rubbing it on a timing card and putting it back in the tool.
Super naive question about the skew. Is that this?
Yeah.
I thought this was a parting tool.
So it's funny.
Parting tool.
I use mine sometimes as a parting tool just because I'm lazy. I'm sure. And also I don't really know how to use a skew very well. I too am a victim of really nasty catches all the time with it. But
yeah, skews are really only meant for spindle turning. And like with that picture that's highlighted there, that's the way where when you're cutting and you're riding the bevel, it'll polish the timber as you go.
Oh, this seems dangerous with high school kids. Is that what you're saying, Tim?
Yeah.
But because it's like that,
okay.
you
I
can
understand.
catch.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I had the kid between the rest and the spinning work. He kind of lifted it up a little and it pulled it in. Like that. That I've never seen that. I don't do that much of this. I just try. What I do is the metal lathe, but I introduce it through the wood lathe. I always go with the wood lathe first, and then I kind of play around, and then we go to the metal. But that's interesting. So I've seen this tool. I didn't know what it did, but really, I got to go to Tim's shop. You got to get the lowdown. You got to get the core. Yeah, that's good. Cool.
So Matt, what was your question?
Yeah,
Matt?
what do you got, Matt? Shift gears. Do it.
Oh, real quick. I mean, I know we're starting getting to the end here, but Tim was talking about, and all of us, obviously, we post and share stuff on Instagram. That's how we all got connected and whatnot. And Chris, this might be something you can answer because, like Tim said, what he actually shows, what any of us actually show on Instagram, what our kids do is probably not even a fourth of what we could catch as content to share. But it's just it's hard as the job goes. And I that's one thing, because the kids have been running the automatic taping and mud drywall tools and stuff. So I'm trying to catch video of that because those are good action things to catch and share. Like, what would you do? I mean, for us to try to capture more of what our kids are doing. I mean, do you think setting up, like Tim, setting up a camera on a tripod that just runs and has I mean, it's not going to have any cool or crazy cool angles or something, but I mean, is it something you think we should look into as the teachers now, especially with, being on the social media world and highlighting our programs and trying to build more interest in the trades? Like having cameras set up around, because like for us, I bring in the every once in a while when we have guests, and they'll videotape and make videos of what's going on. But is it something we should set up tripods with, little cameras, catching these action shots that we know is going to happen, like on the lathe, or for me, if I know the kids are going to be framing in a certain area or something, like you think that would be something that as teachers we should start looking into, investing and trying to, not so something that doesn't take up all our time and we have to stop and pull out our phone. Plus, and it doesn't hinder any safety things because we can keep our eye on and talk to kids. You think that'd be beneficial?
So the short answer is yes, but I mean, I think you need to be a little more strategic about it. So, if you just have like a camera that's like posted up in a corner of your shop and then it's just running like the whole time, then basically what you're ending up with is like security cam footage. Like, it's not,
I mean, park them in places where you're getting decent shots.
Yeah. So, and this is like a filmmaking thing. And it's actually funny. So as I've like sort of gotten into YouTube and then, been more interested in YouTube and filmmaking in general, of course, like as I was talking about, I get a little maniacal with my hobbies, right? So then I start like looking into like what makes good film, and like you start seeing some, I guess like themes. And like one of the big things is like you want a wide shot, a mid shot, and then a tight shot, like of like pretty much every single process. So like if you kind of keep that in mind, then you can think about like where you want your cameras to be. But I mean, I do think, listen, like every kid has one of these phones now, right? Like, I mean, that is something that everybody's equipped with. I almost say like, hey, like get your kids involved in it. Like not necessarily obviously the person that's doing the thing and, making it dangerous, but like, hey, you like standing over there doing nothing, like come up here with the camera, like get a little bit of footage. I mean,
that video Ron was just showing was me doing the work, and I gave my phone to one of the kids and I'm like, hey, get this.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, when something cool is about to happen, right? So you can like get somebody up and be like, hey, like this is about to be awesome. Like make sure you got the camera ready. And then, you guys can be like airdropping or however, if you want to have say like a Dropbox, like for the class where like everybody just uploads their stuff into it. I almost think that would be a better use of like, obviously, resources are precious, right? Like money's precious. Like it'd be better to spend, money on like a monster Dropbox account for everybody to dump their collective footage into, as opposed to buying like a ton of like fancy cameras. Cause I mean, let me tell you, like the new iPhones, I mean, even the new Samsungs, like they're filming in 4K, like that's really high quality. Jason Hibbs from Bourbon Moth, like he films all his YouTube videos on his phone and he edits on an iPad using like free software or $10 software. I mean, Keith Johnson, like same kind of thing. Like he films everything on his iPhone. Like I'm the chucklehead over here with a Sony A6500. I mean, there's a lot of us that are using, like those kinds of cameras, but like, there's definitely plenty of people that are using just what they have in their pocket all the time. So yeah, I think, if it's a little kind of like herding cats in a way, I'm sure trying to get these kids to, be in certain places and do certain things. But I mean, if you sort of like can integrate that into your class, because I'm sure not everybody is working, hands-on like all the time, right? So if somebody's standing around, dude, make yourself useful. Like, bust your phone out. You're on it anyway, probably. Like,
yeah. Well, I probably tell them to put it away just as much as more than I would ever tell them to pull it back out and film. But
yeah, and
I mean that's
cool, right? For them, that
really
might
good
be
idea.
yeah, it might be a different perspective for them. It's like, hey, like instead of texting, why don't you bring the camera over here and get some quality footage of
Once my kids are working, I run around with my iPad and I film my kids. And my senior classes, especially because they have to make folios of their work, I tell them to ask each other to take photos of each other because they've all got iPads as seniors. And so, but in terms of my filming, like we're pretty restricted on what we can publish of our kids over here. We have to have publishing permissions for the students, and I find like I'll only put stuff that I film through the school's official account, not my own. So it goes through the school's Instagram and the school's Facebook page rather than my stuff. I'll show photos of the kids' work, but I won't show photos of the kids.
I'm sure, like, I mean, all of you guys will probably run into a lot of like, I guess, what do you call it? Like legalities and different, sort of red tape sort of options there. But everybody's, school districts, et cetera, it's all on a kind of case by case basis. I'm sure, there's like almost like permission slips that could probably be done, say at like the start of a semester where everybody like opts in if that's something that they want. And then, kids can opt out of it too, like just like in a weird way, just like sex ed, that's kind of like, similar concept. Like you can either participate or not, and, we can manage you accordingly.
Well, way I look at it.
So I've got some kids who want to have the videos.
Go ahead, Damien. Go ahead,
Damien.
I've got some kids who want to have their stuff filmed so that they can go onto the official account page, and their parents haven't returned the note yet. And so it's like, you've got to get that note in and get the permissions in because otherwise we can't publish. And it's usually some of the better kids too that are doing the good jobs.
Well, the way I look at it is, I was gonna say the way I look at it is I don't get any say on whenever they post me on their stories on Snapchat and all this. I'm all over their stuff, so they can be all over mine.
So
our school has no issues with it. So
I think I just want to jump in on this topic. This is a great topic, Matt, and Chris. Thanks for chiming in on this and whatnot. But something I've been doing lately, because even if you film it, it's hard to have all the time to edit it and whatnot. I've got some great footage that I just don't have. I have the time, sure, but you forget, and you try and do it while you're at the gym on the treadmill. You're trying to do something at the same time. There's a lot of time management. But what I've been doing lately, just an idea, and it kind of goes a little around the rules, which is nice, is so what I do here is I have the kids make a LinkedIn account, and then this is their competition project. And what they're doing is it's a flashlight. They drop it 5 feet. They put it on they check the lux meter. They put it on a scale. Actually, he did this backwards, but they check whether he's got a certain amount of lumens. Then he puts it on a scale, and then that puts him in the competition. This is attempt number 2, and he's got to make an improvement. So he's competing with himself, but he's also competing with the class. And I can't film all these and edit it and put it online. I just don't have the time for that. So I have them do it. And you can see here, so the first one was 18 grams. He improved it to 17, and it's like a 1% improvement, which is weak. You should have dropped it by 10%, but you get the idea. And then they hashtag flashlight, which makes it really easy to find. And I guess we're among some R&D labs. I don't even know what this is, but here's another kid. This kid. So there it is. He drops it. Actually, I'll make it bigger. Checks if it works. He checks the lumens. He's got to make it to 500 lumens, or otherwise it doesn't count. And then the next part is he's going to put it on the scale. I guess that's probably 4,000. I don't know. With the filmmaking, they're not, because it's not TikTok, they don't care if it actually communicates. And then he drops it on the scale. He's got to reset the tear, which I don't think they figured that part out yet. Look, he doesn't know how to set the tear. But I have them publish it, basically. There you go. And then I think the next one, he combined them. This is part 2. Okay, so here he goes. And, the point of the whole thing is that I've got so many. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try and get in with the flashlight companies and just, maybe some job placement and see what happens. Not that I care about flashlights. It's just that it's just a great way for have a competition, and then they have to publish a video. So just an idea. But what do you think? Is there a way to make this better? I don't know. It's kind of straight, but it doesn't really have that, they're just sort of going through the motions. A lot of kids, they do the minimum, Chris, what do you think? How do we get them excited about filmmaking?
I mean, yeah, that is tough. I mean, obviously LinkedIn is not like super cool to kids, right?
Right.
Like, it's not even cool to me, and I'm 35. So
Yeah.
it is a tough platform to like kind of get them like jazzed about it. Like
I picked the wrong platform. You could tell me. Just be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like if like you said, like if they were doing this on TikTok, like they would be all over it. Like it would be like their favorite thing. Somebody said in the chat, LinkedIn becomes cool at 36. That's probably true. But yeah, like I think, to make it like more relatable. I mean, ultimately, like these kids want to be like cool amongst their peers, right? And I mean, I understand the job placement aspect of things, etc. But I mean, let me tell you, like TikTok is not going away anytime soon. Like it's only getting bigger and better. I personally don't like it. Like I have a TikTok account. I barely use it. I mean, I'm really just like taking like Instagram videos and like sticking them over on TikTok, and they're just bombing. But like, that's just, that's me. But I mean, from everything I've heard from a social media perspective is like, TikTok is only going to get more funding, more money, and it's just going to get bigger. So, I mean, if you had these kids like doing, say, like vertical oriented video and doing literally the same exact thing, but over on that platform, I'm sure they would be just absolutely jacked up about it.
I'm going to A/B test it. I think the next one we'll do, we got to do TikTok. We can't be messing with LinkedIn. This is crazy.
And you could come up with like a funky hashtag too, because I mean, you'll probably want to like narrow in the hashtag a little bit, because obviously, hashtags are for aggregating content, right? So like if you had hashtag flashlight, like God knows what you're going to end up in there, and hope they spell it right, otherwise it could get real awkward. But
yeah.
So like maybe like say like the flashlight challenge or something, like something like that. I don't know, like hashtag like the Lumen initiative or illuminate, but like spell it funny, something like that. I don't know. But that way it aggregates all of it, and you can yourself as a teacher like look at it, grade it, judge it, something like that.
Don't call it drop it like it's hot, Ron.
But yeah, I think that, and another nice thing too is like as far as like how they're editing this, like I'm assuming they're doing it on their phone, but like they're probably having to use some other editing device.
Yeah.
Whereas TikTok, you edit in app, and it's a lot more intuitive for kids, especially. Like I can't edit a TikTok video to save my life on the platform, but for whatever reason, kids seem to be really, really good at it. My wife was telling me a story about like her friend's like 7-year-old niece that they had at a wedding, like editing TikTok video because nobody else could figure it out. So that just goes to show you, like these kids have a lot of talent that we don't. So, trying to maximize that and use what they're into, I think would be, totally on par.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say my 6-year-old did the editing for my very first TikTok.
Probably got like 1.3 million views, and then the next one you did got like
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I put up one. Yeah, exactly. Well, then I had one of my students is like a TikTok celebrity, like for no good reason at all, which that's the best thing part about TikTok. I forget what his. Yeah. My stepdaughter just walks in. Is that Jaden? Yeah. See.
It's his brother.
Oh, the same with his brother.
What?
No, nothing.
It's his brother, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's famous on TikTok too.
Yeah. So yeah, he's got like 200,000. But I told the kids if they want to make TikToks and stuff, and they do stuff for LinkedIn, but I've been slowly trying to crack into the TikTok thing. It's but the reels, I'll tell you what, which is TikTok on Instagram, starting to get the hang of those, and those things have been going. Me and Mark Willie have been having some fun with the reels and stuff. Seeing we had one go like 500,000 or something crazy. So
Yeah, the
on the
reels are
views.
great.
There's a lot of like obviously competition between all these different platforms right now. So each one is like trying to like outdo the other one.
This is the reel, right?
Yes, that should be a reel.
Where's the numbers for this one? This one went crazy.
Well, that's a reel, but that's not the one. I don't know if you could see, unless it's on your own account. I don't know if you can see how many views. You'd have to go to like your own account. So if you have you done any reels, Ron? You could go to your account and check your reel.
They're probably horrible.
I mean, I can
Check
pull
your,
mine. I can pull mine up.
challenge.
Yeah, go right back. You had it. It was right there.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's okay. So where it says posts and then reels at the top of that.
Oh. Here?
Yes, click that. And I think it gives you the numbers. Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Look at that. 16K.
You got one over here.
Whoa.
389K. Yeah.
Jesus. Running wire in between the T-stud. You don't have to drill it.
Yeah, Patrick, Jimmy's electrician reposted that, Matt, on his stories.
Say that again.
Patrick.
Who did?
Jimmy's electrician reposted
Jimmy
that.
DeRessa's electrician.
I was about to say because I saw this today, and that's
he reposted that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw that today.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Patrick Reynolds.
Yeah.
Wow, awesome. What is it? So I have one problem with this scenario. So let's say they got a TikTok account, and this is the problem I have with a lot of people with their Instagram. Not in this crowd, but you ever notice some people, they got the Instagram, they got pictures of their like leftover food. They got pictures of like babies, pooping or something like that. And then a picture of craftsmanship. And I'm like, hey, can't you just clean that up and have like the baby pictures and the shit photos on some other account? And as an adult, you can have that conversation. But with the kids, if they got a TikTok account, I'm going to assume, which might be not the right thing, but I'm going to assume it is complete nonsense. And then they're going to have my flashlight challenge on there, and I'm going to try and help them get a job. And then when it comes up, it'll come up with all the garbage with it. And that's my concern. Am I overly protective? Do I have to worry about that? What do you think?
I mean, so yes, like you should be somewhat concerned about that. I think what you can do is like, let's say, I don't know how your competition works necessarily, but like say the people that are like winners or your top 5 or whatever, if they have questionable content on their TikTok, like just have them download it to their phone, like save it to the phone, re-upload it on LinkedIn, like cut the cord basically.
You don't have to publish it on the TikTok.
Correct. Like it's all your content, so you can save all of it, yourself, and then, put it elsewhere. And
this is great, man. I'm learning a lot.
I used to tell the kids to have 2 accounts for like Instagram, like a professional one, like for school, and then one for whatever else they want, their personal one. And the school one doesn't have to be for like tech ed projects. It can be anything, whatever school project they're working on. And they can start now in 6th grade and work it all the ways up until their senior year, maybe even college.
Yeah. And I think that's a super smart idea. I mean, that's, most kids aren't that practical to come up with that idea on their own, but like it's like a portfolio, right? I mean, a good buddy of mine, he doesn't even have a website. He's also a shop teacher here in the Fort Lauderdale area. And people ask him all the time. They're like, hey, like, show me your website, show me what you got. And he's like, listen, here's my Instagram. Like literally everything I've made in the past 7 years is on here. Like you want something, like flip through there, see if you find something you like, and then I'll let you know if I can recreate it to your scale. And it works. I mean, that's just kind of the way of the world now, like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Now, the wild thing is that when I tell the students this, they say, I'm the only teacher telling them that, which is really a scary thing. So, I let them know. I say, like, I have this whole video about how the paper resume is dead. I literally crumble it up. I'm like, listen, they invented that when there used to be this thing called a typewriter where it would like smash the letters into the thing and there was a tape of ink and you'd be like, it's ridiculous. And so, I asked them, I say, hey, how many of your teachers are asking you guys to make paper resumes? And they're all like, yeah, we make a resume, and they pull out the paper. I was like, that is it's not even like kind of dead. It's beyond dead. It's been dead for 10 years. Like it's gone. You need a social business account. LinkedIn happens to be like the resume, and Facebook had a baby and the content is clean, but you could do it with TikTok because it's here to stay. You could do it with LinkedIn because it's here to stay. And so this is like an important thing, I think, because it gives them an advantage. And if you think about it, like they're always like, oh, test scores, test scores, test scores. But if you got 2 kids that have A's, what's going to put them over the edge to start that business and build clients or get into that college they want or whatever? How are you going to show that you don't just memorize stuff and put it back on a piece of paper? You got to show your creativity in order to move ahead. That's, so.
Absolutely. And I mean, YouTube falls right into that too. Like YouTube is evergreen content that's linked to Google because I mean, it's their company, like, so that stuff gets pushed in Google search. Like, when we think of like YouTubers and woodworking, we kind of think about like the instructional, more DIY content, but like let's say, you're a professional furniture maker and you're just trying to market like the like gorgeous products that you have made and how you're making them. Like you can have like a voiceover free video that's, it's essentially woodworking porn at that point, like that's showing off your product and like that's your visual catalog. And you're also like highlighting your like technique and craftsmanship. I mean, people eat that up, and it's a landing page. Like you don't necessarily need like that video to generate, I don't know, 1 million views, but if a client asks you like, hey, do you make a coffee table? Sure. Here's a couple of videos of some coffee tables I've made. Tell me if you like them. Like that is, I mean, it's invaluable. Absolutely.
I use it for like quickly someone wants to learn how to, let's say, simple thing. They don't know how to measure. Boom. I pull up my video on, what I call fractions of a pizza. I just, and then quickly I have them, I say, hey, just copy this. And it's a 1-minute video. It takes 2 seconds for them to do it. And, this way I don't have to worry about it as much in the classroom. So it's not just a portfolio piece. It's also like your ability to be efficient in the classroom. I'm sure, Tim, if you had like a whole video on, how to use the lathe tools and whatnot, maybe it would save you some time. It doesn't solve it, just gets them started. Like, here's my 1-minute video on fractions of a pizza. I'm like, hey, divide the page, make a circle, make like an upside down goalpost or whatever. You got to put the crust in there. You got to put pepperoni pizza, and you get into it for a minute. And, so absolutely, like teachers and students can use, and it doesn't have to have the views. Like you said, I don't need this to go viral. I don't care. I'm just trying to make it so I don't have to spend time doing this,
That's actually one thing that I need to add. I know me personally to my channel is a little more of like the techniques, like, so simple things, stuff that I know that I do well, like let's say like, tuning a card scraper, like that kind of stuff. Cause frankly, like the amount of questions I get on those topics gets a little bit annoying. And I'm like, all right, I just got to film it once and then I can direct people to that forever. And I never have to answer that question again.
And then think about how many people would use that. All the shop teachers would use it if you oriented your videos towards I don't know what this is, but towards like classes or very simple. Imagine that. it's funny. Barbercheck, he's another shop teacher, and he, helped start this podcast. He actually did a whole bunch of videos based on lesson plans that I had, and then, oh, see you later, Mark. Thanks a lot. And then I actually used his videos in my lessons because I didn't have time to make the content. So we share among the shop teachers. If you had of course, your videos are beautiful, but yeah, if you had some straightforward stuff, I think the shop teacher would start using them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, this was pretty good. Anybody got any other questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap up the recording. All right. This is good. Chris, this is amazing. I really appreciate what, joining us. I think, we learned a lot. That's the whole thing. We're popping the bubble. We're trying to get everybody to, it's a community. We're all helping each other. And you never know what it leads to. I didn't know you could make the TikTok videos and then put them on. That would be better. All right. So I learned a lot tonight, not just about TikTok. Very hand craftsmanship. You guys are into details. It's awesome. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll probably stick around for a bit, just to hang out, but we're going to end the recording right here. Shop Class Podcast.